question I pose here is, what is the basic psychology of education exactly based upon? Well, as professional educators, this is a question that I am sure you and I ask ourselves all the time. Now, I am the author of 3 books on the brain: Brain Wealth Secrets, Outsmarting the Dementia Epidemic, and Superbrain, Maximize Your Brain Health for a Better Life. And I've been invited on a couple dozen television shows as a medical expert speaking on the topic of preventing Alzheimer's. Based on this, and I'm sure you yourself know, that there is a lot of very reliable research on this subject of the psychology of education. Now, can we agree and safely speculate together that because education is stimulating the senses of another person, the fundamental education, the fundamental psychology of education should be based upon how the other person's experiences are processed, how they're sorted, synthesized, and stored, how they're remembered, how they're memorized, how they're conceptualized, how they're visualized, heard, felt, and touched. Anytime a teacher is teaching, whether it is using the Socratic method or whether it's encouraging students to study and analyze things on their own, or whether it's done in a cooperative fashion where there's common discussion, all this teaching is mediated by the brain and nervous system. And why is this? Well, we're seeing each other, we're hearing each other, we have a sense of touch, we also smell and taste while these interactions are going on. These are all a function of your brain. So because of our sensory apparatus, the neurology of it actually passes through and is mitigated by what is called the primitive brain, the reptilian brain, the midbrain. And as such, these must be taken into account in the educational paradigm, in the psychology of education. All of these neurological connections have to be taken into account. So what is the bottom line of this transformative process called teaching? Well, I think it'll come as no surprise to you that values and beliefs lie at the foundation. And values and beliefs are deeply rooted in the subconscious mind, in the deep, deep part of the brain. And the subconscious mind itself includes what is called the reptilian brain. So here, this brain, it's kind of hard to see, but this is the cerebrum here, the cerebellum, which not only coordinates visual activity as well as all movement activity, it also coordinates thoughts and thinking. Putting thoughts together actually is partly a function of the cerebellum. Many people don't realize that, but it's true. So if I take this apart here, you can see there's a little cavern that is left behind right in through here. This is all the reptilian brain and the midbrain and the primitive brain. See, it looks sort of like a reptile there. You can see this part as we turn it around. Obviously a plastic representation of the brain, but it's about the size of my brain. And all of the sensory organs, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, pass through this reptilian brain part. It all goes through here and eventually into the rest of the brain for its sorting, synthesizing, storing, etc. function. But the reptilian brain is a very, very key part of the educational process and the psychology of education. I think you would agree if you think about it really carefully. So we're just going to put these parts of the brain back together here. Get this all locked in together. Find the right little spots. Okay, the cerebellum again also. Here in the back part of the head, which is very important. If you get knocked in the back of the head, then you can have balance problems, etc. And the cerebellum, key component of education as well, and thinking, because of its function in coordinating thoughts. Let's get that in there, like that, cerebellum there. So it is said, and I think pretty well agreed by most people, that values and beliefs create thoughts. And then our thoughts create feelings. And then the feelings create actions, behaviors, and outcomes. And those outcomes are the results. So when we start out with values and understanding values, ultimately those end up as results. So it is only logical that we as educators take into account the deeply held beliefs of our students and co-learners in order to get the results that we are there to get. So how does this whole process work? Well, let's take a look here. We've got once again, we have the skull here, almost the same size as mine, and that plastic brain came out of here. So how do we actually find out about these thoughts and values, the values inside of our students? Well, there's a process that is part of my Supercharge Student Success program where we can go in very easily and we can find out what the values are of our students. Then these values lead to thoughts. Thoughts lead to, that's right, thoughts create feelings. And feelings create actions. Then actions create behaviors, and our behaviors, and then those behaviors create outcomes. And those outcomes end up as the results. Educators nowadays, and for decades, are being forced to create results-driven programs. Results-driven. That's the end product of this whole process, starting with values deep in the subconscious mind. And the empirically based programs are being pushed as a way to drive social, academic, and graduation outcomes. So as an educator, you're supposed to be following empirically based things, outcomes-based research in order to improve graduation rates, to improve the ability of students to perform well on exams, the ability to succeed academically, so they can graduate and they can have a higher degree of attendance at college, because it is well known that college-educated students tend to have higher income, they had the better jobs, they had the higher leadership arenas. And this is why there is such a strong push for equity and to have more individuals getting a college level education. Besides that, colleges are the place where you often meet very influential other people. You establish many of the bonds and the close connections that will last a lifetime. I know that I still have many friends that I connected with in college who are very powerful influences and deeply understanding individuals to this very day. Part of that may also be due to the fact that at that age, the 18, 19, unless you go into college at age 14 or 16 or 13 or something, the brain is developing. It's the last stages of the first cycle of the full development of the brain and the neurological system up until about age 24. And at this point, you're maturing sufficiently so these established friendships and connections with professors and with other people are key components of success that many people have as far as their jobs. Now, I know that many educators all graduate from similar schools and they keep in connection, and then they help each other get jobs. They help and they support each other in the educational field. Just looking at LinkedIn and the histories of a wide variety of people in the field, you can see where the certain schools, Harvard School of Education, Columbia, other schools, people maintain their connections, and that is how you get connected and get the job. So this is another reason why we are trying to help students who are economically disadvantaged, don't have the advantages of education, to complete middle, high school, get into good schools, and be able to graduate from there so that they have these connectivity advantages as well. But at any rate, educational programs that are behind and the basis for creating greater success for these students are empirically based programs to drive the social, academic, and graduation outcomes we all desire. These programs are group and individually based processes. The curriculum, a common curriculum that's group based, and yet each individual student may learn in a slightly different way. And so to be totally successful, this group experience needs to also be molded to accommodate to the different individuals so that they succeed based on their own capacities and also on their values. So what if there was a new tool that helped educators quickly understand the underlying values of the students? They could quickly pop open the skull so you can quickly find out the values, because we have found that values predict behavior and results. So understanding these underlying values of the students helps teachers match the programs to the individual students' values so that the desired outcomes were more predictable. If there was such a thing, would that be something you'd be interested in? If there was such a method to figure out the values of the students more quickly so that the educational variability in the way students think and in their behavior, in their results, if you can figure that out more quickly, is that something that you would be interested in? Well, this is exactly the point of my Supercharge Student Success teacher training program. And this is exactly the point of my Supercharged Student Success program. It helps educators quickly understand the underlying values of the individual students and thus allow the creative, evidence-based modification of a program to match the values. And when we match the values, if we can tap into the values, we can get the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, and the resulting behaviors to more easily accomplish the goals that we have as educational institutions for the entire group. So there's this teacher development training called Supercharge Student Success that in these videos I have the executive summary video, and then I go into more detail about what it is and how it's accomplished. So watch and enjoy the following brief video explanations that summarize the teacher development training, and then they further go into more detail about the results possible with this Supercharged Student Success program that is led by teachers and administrators based on the training program that I have to offer. Watch them and enjoy.